it's a heads up, reaching out to the core community, you, me, and everybody else, in regards to secure their spot on the allow list for the Universal Profiles Mobile Alpha release. And like it says, stay tuned. You might be hearing from us soon. So obviously, pay attention to it, especially if you're on X. And nonetheless, I'm going to take you to this other part of this because I want you guys to see some of this. This was posted just a couple days ago, okay, in regards to Luxo. Universal profiles are built for the next era of blockchain, intuitive, secure, and designed to make blockchain inherently social, cultural, and creative by, of course, default. This is the missing piece, and now it is the time. As I get more further into the outline, you will hear Fabian Vogelsteller basically mention the whole thing about like 30 years have gone by in regards to the internet, and we still don't have this. Again, think about supply and demand forces at work. I'm going to play a few clips that was posted recently. We'll be right back. Here we go.
This needs to exist.
Right.
I mean, this needs to exist. This is the missing piece that needs to exist. And I haven't seen it anywhere else being done right, or even closely to fully see that picture. And I haven't seen it back then, and I don't even see it yet. I see the early versions of something that we now already finalized. So what keeps me going is I know this needs to go. This needs to come. It needs to go out.
And is now the time.
Oh, it's out. The time is here. I mean, obviously, Universal Profile as a foundation, for anything new in the internet, really, it's there. Obviously, there's a lot of apps we can build. There's a lot of, apps to manage your profiles and interact with things. There's a lot of stuff to build on top of this. Better recoveries, and it can be extended like to the endless. But the foundation is here, and that was the real innovation on the end.
Yeah.
That was the tough one, to get that thing from a blurry picture into a crystal sharp existing reality. And now it's about educating people to see oh, there's this tool, now I can do all of these things.
Yeah.
That, people discussed this in the last years already many times, but it just couldn't be done because the user experience was bad, or because you just couldn't attach information to an account. So half of the stuff you want to do, you can't even do.
Yeah.
It's now there, so now we can do that. I mean, blockchain hasn't really been really being used, and that's kind of a crazy thing if you think about it. Like we had all of these, market caps and everything, but so far everything is still about trading. It's still about tokens,
meme coins,
DeFi, meme coins. I think it's simple. If everything is a wallet in blockchain by default, then everything will be about trading, right? And everything will be about whatever has to do with tokens. Your blockchain account is a profile. It's an account. Yes, it can hold tokens. Yes, it can transact. Yes, it can interact with protocols, forms of money or whatever. But it is more than that. That's what people should understand.
Yeah.
A profile, that's a wallet and an account at the same time. You will have multiple profiles for different environments, and some are anonymous and some are public.
Right.
But on the end, the profile is what enables then users that do not want to just invest, but people that want to do something that has to do with, like your friends, your circles. I mean, the power that we have with DAOs and with communities managing themselves and also transacting economic value or reputational value, that's something you can't do in Web 2, right? You can't take your account from one place to another, and you can't transact without a third-party middleman. The fact that we don't really have a creator economy that's independent of a single platform is crazy. We're like 20 plus years in the internet.
Yeah.
Literally 30 plus years in the internet, right?
Yeah.
But 20 years since it's really hype with social. And we're still in this very early phase. And we still don't really have we have just Twitter thinking about, paying out people with a lot of followers, right?
Right.
YouTube is keeping what they pay out to followers at a minimum. You have to have millions of views to even get anything.
Right.
And the thing is, people are probably very willing to give and contribute. See Patreon, right? You see people, they want to give if they believe in a content creator. But right now it's just so complicated, right? You need to sign up, and you need to sign up on a different platform, or you need to add your payment details to to YouTube and maybe you don't really want to do that, you have to make 5 clicks and 10 steps, even to just to give somebody like, I don't know, $1
Yeah.
or some kind of form of appreciation. If this is built into your account, if your account is basically an economical actor by default, then now everything, you know, can literally be a transaction wherever you are.
Right.
So the platform doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah. And
They don't even need to support that, and you could still do that, you know?
I like the idea of having platforms that has anything unique. You know, my concept is if you have something unique, that itself will create, as I say, supply and demand forces. You know, and especially if they can do it better than anyone else out there, that should stand out. Now, the next thing I want to jump into, other than these particular clips, is sharing with you some key things that, again, was shared from Luxo. On your screen, you will see this, and it goes on to mention some key things. And if anything, I'll try to put it up on the other screen to make it, that much bigger. So obviously the highlights universal profiles, but you see here the whole concept of tokens, NFTs, and more importantly, on this area, right below the whole thing universal profiles is smart contract based profiles and how they're essential foundation for the better Web3 experience. Kind of like what Fabian was talking about in these video clips, visuals. And when we get more into this, I'm going to put a lot of focus on the whole thing of gasless, because let's face it, when it comes to all these things we're talking about, well, this is the guy who created the ERC20 token standard, right? And that's the most widely used smart contract basically out there. And a lot of people aren't a fan of that, but there's still a tremendous amount of value in that. So how can you go from the creator of a token standard that is still the most widely used to this day, and again, that was attached to Ethereum, and again, the whole idea that Ethereum is like old, outdated tech. And if you've been following the whole thing with Luxo, you have this whole new mechanism of, as Fabian pointed out, like a fancier version of ketchup, a fancier version of Ethereum, I should say ketchup, right? So the thing is this: old model, expensive gas fees; new model, gas less. That's definitely worth pointing out. And as I take you to this other area, again, right under the part about tokens, what do you see? You see the whole thing about like having this all unified, okay? And obviously I do a lot of coverage about the concept of a unified ledger. So all these things, even if I wasn't in Luxo, speaks my language, and if anything, a lot of you guys as well. So could we very well have flexible NFTs that are truly extensible and directly composable with a universal profile? Well, I think the answer is yes. And I like some of this. Better IDs. I mean, moving forward, I've done a lot of studying on the whole thing of, other projects. You guys know that I talk a lot about Quant and Jasmine and all that, but even in Japan and even in the Euro system, there's a lot of focus on better IDs, and those better IDs are going to be your utility-based NFTs. This mechanism of this universal profile playing a role into it all, to me, not only complements everything, but it tells me that this has to have tremendous value moving forward. And oh, by the way, there's not billions of LYX. I like that as well. Also reposted from Fabian. He posted this basically on October 7th. He goes on to mention that he's very excited about the grid. It's not only going to make Universal's profiles useful beyond collecting assets, but he also goes on to mention that it finally allows you as a dApp developer to build mini apps. Forget about onboarding, landing pages, or account management. I mean, how many times do we see, for example, projects that get onboarded and they want to make it look like they have a huge following and so on, because they're fresh right out of the water. All you need to do is build a simple JS app that only has the interface to your smart contracts, and people can put this under their profile. or cloned from other profiles. Any visitor will be connected with a click of a button to your mini app. And I thought I'd blow this up for you guys because, as you can see right here, it gives you an example of how this all basically works. And there you go. I mean, where do we expand it from here? Well, my thing is, I want you guys to understand some of my notes. And basically speaking, before we close it out, there's some key areas of why this is basically important. So, one thing I'm going to bring to you guys is actually on the other page, and it's actually here, and then I'll of course get into some of my keynotes. And basically speaking, let's go ahead and share this in regards to more of the key findings, because again, it's been a while since I talked about Lukso. So this right here mentions, unlike typical transfers, your universal profile can notify you about asset transfers. Getting real-time transaction updates is enabled by the universal receiver, or LSP1. Now in the visualization, you see here it mentioning how this all works together, and of course what is in the middle. But you heard Fabian talking about the whole thing of taking out the middleman, to a sense. It says to notify the recipient that he's about to receive tokens during a token transfer, the token contract can call the universal receiver function of the receipt with, for example, what you see on the bottom here. And more importantly, it's getting into the next part, because while there's custom rules and conditions, you now have the ability to react to certain rules or conditions, of course, thanks to LSP1. But the functionality itself handles incoming transactions and executes custom logic such as accepting, rejecting, or forwarding assets based on predefined rules. More importantly, how so? Well, as you also see on this other tab, it's how it's all broken down and how it all comes together, because smart contracts need to have, for example, a way in which you don't have to just jump through so many extra steps. From what I have interpreted in regards to the universal profile, well, it's an all-in-one, if you will, that solves a lot of problems that exist today in the world of blockchain DLT that haven't been solved. So would we truly see an emission of an event to the network, and would we forward the call in regards to the receiver, like it says, or the delegate? I think the answer is yes. And as you also see here, let's switch it back to that. Enhanced security means the implementation of robust security measures like multi-signature approvals and role-based access. I know it seems technical, but again, understanding why this is even being pointed out. Because permission systems call your key manager. And a lot of you guys are already aware of some of this, but again, what's the whole point? Well, it's to reduce the risk of unauthorized transactions. Again, you could have the internet of value, but do you really have the internet of trust? And here's also an illustration of how it all comes together. You see the devices, you see the key managers, and more importantly, you even see some of the old standards from Ethereum, but what's interesting is how it kicks it over to, of course, the smart contracts. Who better to understand how this all flows than a person who created the ERC20 standard smart contract, of course, on Ethereum, other than Fabian. And as I take you to this other key area, it goes on to mention my key highlight, and that is this. I want you guys to understand these concepts of gasless transfers. Again, biggest complaint for most people on Ethereum is the low speed and the high gas fees. So I can totally appreciate this. And like it's mentioned here, when you create a universal profile, you are in fact granted 20 million gas quota per month through the universal relayer, making it essentially free to customize your profile and make transfers on Lukso. That is awesome. I cover Stellar. Stellar always boasts it shouldn't cost money to send money. And more importantly, it shouldn't cost you $300 in gas fees to send $50 worth of the native token. And of course, we can learn more about relayers if you want to do so, but that is definitely worth pointing out. As I jump back to some key areas for you, I want you to understand just a tad bit more, and this is the last part before I kick into my own notes. And like it says, human readable names. With universal profiles, you can be sure of who you're transacting with by seeing a profile name and descriptive information. These are the things moving forward that big platforms, established names want to see. I'll come back in the frame and discuss this for just a brief moment. Guys, gals, everybody that's listening, it's not rocket science. You know, how many times have we seen examples of, you know, a person stating that I don't know who I'm transacting with, and maybe some people really like that to a degree because, you know, that's the point of like Bitcoin, everything being anonymous. But say what you want, you can also appreciate the idea that some people don't necessarily want to deal that way, and they want to see, especially with the concept of a public ledger, just who in the world you're really truly dealing with. We're talking about more adoption. There is key areas of where the traditional sense of the word wants to still embrace the concept of, hey, you know what? Maximus Crypto, who is he? Or who are you that's doing the transaction? More importantly, as I jump back into it, is the breakdown of how all this works. And in the illustration that you're going to see here, you're going to see kind of a nice little visual of how it works. It's a little bit blurred because, again, I'm trying to blow it up a little bit. But even with this, as we zoom in, you see the LSP3 profiles, you see the key, and again, you see where it's going to go to. And more importantly, how it instantly takes that universal profile of everything you basically need, and if anything, getting into like the metadata, getting to the idea of what tokens would be used, what NFTs would be used, but more importantly, how it all connects to a universal receiver delegate through a smart contract. Okay, I think this is all totally worth pointing out. Now, I'm gonna take you, of course, to my keynotes. My keynotes, I want you guys to understand, is actually a key highlight for this moving forward because, again, it's been a while since we mentioned the whole thing of Luxo. So, number one, what I want to talk about is this announcement in regards to Luxo branded mobile phones / computers. You got to keep in mind, fully decentralized operating system. You know, like, you know, I'm really into Quant, for example, because I like the idea that it's a blockchain operating system. So these key terms, such as operating system, are right up my alley. All dApps and social media will basically go through e-commerce on a Luxo device. That's crazy. So at the end of the day, why is this significant? Why even tune in? Well, if you hold Luxo or thinking about getting into it, understand why it all makes sense, but more importantly, some of the driving forces moving forward. So the whole idea, I should say, of why, again, it's significant is focus on data privacy and control. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have end-to-end encryption, that's a bonus. But every interaction and piece of data basically would be, of course, encrypted, and that would ensure maximum privacy. I mean, say what you want. Ethereum, yeah, a lot of people will look at it as being slow, but there is a trusted amount of security on that platform, especially if you compare it to like Binance smart contracts and so on. What about user ownership? Well, users would have, of course, full ownership of their data. And this whole thing of the universal profile would mean they could decide who can access it and how it's used. I mean, again, they have the control. Look at what's going on with Bitcoin. One of the biggest selling factors for Bitcoin is, you know, decentralized and anonymous, and the whole idea that the people control what's going on, right? That's why people say it's freedom. Is this another form of freedom? I think the answer basically is yes, but the whole idea that there's no centralized authority, again, that kind of also reminds me of the concept of Bitcoin, and there would be no single entity controlling it or monitoring it moving forward. All right, would we have things in motion in regards to a decentralized app ecosystem? Think about this for a moment. As we know, self-sovereign apps, well, the concept sounds cool, but is there really a lot out there? Well, basically, from what I gathered in this with my notes, that all apps would be decentralized, meaning that they wouldn't have to rely, of course, on a central server and even an app store. Wow, think about how many projects out there, their focus is to get on an app store. So, would this reduce the risk of censorship? I think it would. Would it ensure app developers have more control over their creations? I think it would. But I know this is not quant video, but interoperability. Fabian even talks about it. So apps could seamlessly interact with each other, creating a more vibrant and, of course, dynamic ecosystem. This is a huge win moving forward, even if you're a person that's on the cusp of possibly getting into LYX. But since I did reference Ethereum, understand that a lot of these standards have been incorporated over to Luxo because, again, who created some of this? Again, Fabian in the past with Ethereum. So, again, would we see more enhanced security taking the models from Ethereum and applying it to here? Well, of course, the answer is yes. But two things that stood out for me was immutable records, because transactions and data would be stored on blockchain, make it more tamper-proof and immutable. And the other thing was resistant to censorship. All right, say what you want. Everybody, for the most part, is just dreaming and hoping that somebody like Elon Musk would recognize a blockchain platform. Do we see that with this? I don't know, but say what you want, X does have to recognize moving forward things like privacy, because it's definitely an issue, especially in Japan moving forward. But if Elon Musk is going to declare to the world that his platform, as in X, is truly a platform that is about free speech, and, let's face it, he's talking about doing the whole thing of unbanning people that have been banned, and apparently even me, if I block somebody in the future, he's going to flip the other switch and those people are unblocked. Well, that's worth pointing out. But listen to this, in regards to universal profiles with Luxo, yes, it's resistant to censorship, and the decentralized nature of the system would make it resistant to censorship or government interference. So would that be a problem with X, or would that actually be more of an incentive for X? That's a question I'll leave you with. And the other thing I want to talk about is economic empowerment. Two things on that. So I'm a content creator, as you guys know, and one of the things is tokenization of assets. Well, he mentioned the whole thing of like people who make content, where they're the researchers and so on. Would we see people like me be able to tokenize our assets and trade them directly on a device, empowering me and some of you other people out there financially? Well, the answer is yes. And more importantly, it would create new revenue streams. And that, my friends, is why I feel as though that X, that would be appealing to them. Yeah, is it part of a trade-off? Yes. But on X, one of the driving forces for it is content creation, because it creates impressions and people interact. You get the drill, you get the gist. But developers could create a new revenue model based on the decentralized ecosystem, such as subscription service or in-app purchases. Think about that. X, as we know, has subscription services. So am I too far off with some of those claims of what could happen? Well, that's speculative, and I get it. But as we know, also moving forward, there's lots of implications in regards to all of this. And basically speaking, for Luxo, I think, if anything, it means increased adoption. And we all want to see increased adoption in any particular coin or token that we're dealing with. So a Luxo branded device would significantly increase the adoption, of course, of what? The Luxo token, LYX, moving forward. But it would be essential for interacting, of course, with the ecosystem. Speaking of ecosystem, would we see an enhanced ecosystem? The answer is also yes on that. It would create a thriving ecosystem, in my opinion, of decentralized apps and services, of course, built on just that, the Luxo platform. And more importantly, brand recognition. Say what you want. If you have something that's unique and nobody else has it, people will recognize Luxo moving forward that, hey, you want to know something? They're the ones that got the job done in regards to universal profiles moving forward. And more importantly, say what you want, Fabian being the creator of that, well, that would solidify moving forward. Would that equal the price action? Could be, but I'm more the type of person in which I want to see that utility put in motion. But if the utility of the universal profile is being put in action, well, you could put 2 and 2 together and see what the potential outcome for the upside, as the saying goes, would be. Now, 3 things I want to talk about, because we do need to address the blockchain space. Well, would this be a pioneering effort? Yeah, it would be a pioneering effort. And for me, I always like to get involved with things that are new, that are creating a solution, but are pioneering the space moving forward. So yes, Luxo would have a pioneering effort, and it would be a pioneering effort that would inspire other projects to explore similar ideas. Taking that model is a win moving forward, and I think Fabian recognizes that, because it gets us to the next thing. New use cases. Say what you want. That seed would be planted, and then more seeds out there would do their own thing based off the model, and it would open up a new use case. Like Fabian mentioned in those particular clips where he's walking through that field, because open up new use cases for technology is a win moving forward for all of us, no matter if you're a fan of this project or not, because it would demonstrate its potential beyond finance and, of course, cryptocurrencies, like he mentioned in that clip. And that also leads to more trust. Like I also mentioned before, you can have all the internet of value in the world, but if you don't have the trust, you don't have jack diddly squat. It would help build trust in the blockchain and decentralized services out there, but more importantly, the blockchain and DLT space, by showcasing its benefits for privacy, security, and user empowerment. So would we see a new paradigm of technology moving forward? I think the answer basically is yes. Simply do me a favor, if you listen to the entire outline, type in these 2 words, and that is FV, as in Fabian Vogelsteller, and I'll know that you listened to the entire outline. Really glad to bring you guys some new updates, especially within the last hour in regards to Lukso LYX. Saying goes, know what you hold, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.
If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. Say goodbye to complicated setups and hello to Decent Wallet, the hassle-free solution to your digital currency needs. With just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent Wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure.